how do we make giving this lifestyle, everyday, frictionless, free, contagious thing that's just part of the way we live? The core objective was there are 8 billion humans in the world. All of them should get this gift of giving. Well, some don't get the dopamine hit. Many do, because it's, scientifically proven that giving feels good and helping other people feels good. And a lot of people aren't necessarily in a position to do that.
Welcome to the Worthy for 30 podcast. I am your host, Eric Tash. Join us as we delve into the world of impactful business leaders who are setting the bar high. Worthy for 30 carefully curates its guests, engaging with business trailblazers who embody the ethos of doing good while doing well. In each episode, we extract actionable tips and wisdom from these visionaries, offering you a blueprint to merge success with social impact. Ready to elevate your business game? Let's dive in and learn how to do good while thriving. Worthy for 30, where purpose meets profit. Good afternoon and welcome back to another exciting podcast recording here on the Worthy for 30 podcast. I am joined by Stephen Reddy, the co-founder and CEO of Inspired. As many of you know, philanthropy, charitable giving is an important topic on the Worthy for 30 podcast and community. With the likes of Ben Irwin of Charity Buzz, who was previously sitting in Stephen's seat, talking about his approach to charitable giving throughout the course of the year. And funny enough, Stephen and Ben have known each other for a long time. Just total coincidence, as Stephen and I were talking before the recording started. How small this world is, especially through mutual connection, and more importantly, through mission-driven individuals on wanting to be impactful and put a lot of positivity into the world throughout their daily lives. Jobs and being ambitious and giving shouldn't be thought of as mutually exclusive. And Stephen will talk about how he's making that possible through Inspired. So Stephen, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Eric. I'm really excited. And I love to follow Ben. I'm a big fan of Ben's. And like I said, one of the people that have stuck with it in pursuit of a mission that can be very complicated in terms of building a business and, being responsible for shareholders and growth and revenue and profits, and making sure mission stays the number one focus of the company. And to be able to pull it off is no small feat. And I give him and the team a lot of credit for sticking with it. So I'm happy to follow Ben on the podcast.
Absolutely. And that's great. And that sets us up, so you're leading the charge and Inspired. You're working with, e-commerce and big brands who have beautiful Shopify sites, and they want to have the ability to give their consumers a way to say, hey, you're purchasing another IU alum is on the Inspired platform.
I texted him today. That's great.
Yes. Yo is on, because I saw that. I'm like, oh my goodness. The IU connection is loud and strong. And what's really cool is that when you go to the Yo website, on the footer of the page is, you can make a contribution, or you can enable a contribution to a cause that Yo has provided, and makes it very seamless and intuitive for that consumer. So one, before we get to the actual mechanics, I'd love to understand, and for the listeners to understand, how you got to where you are today, Stephen.
We got to it by asking ourselves that same question, which is, how do we make giving this lifestyle, everyday, frictionless, free, contagious thing that's just part of the way we live? And that took us down a windy road in order to get there. But the core objective was there are 8 billion humans in the world. All of them should get this gift of giving, many of which can't afford to do it. I mean, like you mentioned earlier, like a lot of people, end of the year, tax season comes around, they're trying to figure out how to get their tax deduction. Well, some don't get the dopamine hit. Many do, because it's scientifically proven that giving feels good, and helping other people feels good. And a lot of people aren't necessarily in a position to do that. And not just people, but founders, owners of brands that are building businesses, and they're trying to grow in a climate that is very challenging from a margin standpoint, from a cost of acquisition standpoint. Venture dollars have gone away for, direct to consumer brands. It's gotten increasingly challenging to grow an e-commerce business profitably. So it's like, we looked at it first with, let's make this accessible for 8 billion humans. Then we said, oh, wait a second. There's this gap in the middle between 8 billion humans, and it's this incredible ecosystem of brands and businesses that are creating great products and great experiences that are inspiring customers, no pun intended. And many of them want to give, but they don't have the means to. And it's either, too complicated, too expensive, combination of both. But really, it's never been results driven. It goes back to the merging of, philanthropy and mission with business and economics. And so we kind of approached and said, well, if we could really, live up to the do good and do well, that solves part of it. Like if actually doing good helps you grow your business and drive more revenue and convert more customers, that's part of it. And then the second part was, even if you can do well, you still have to compete with other mechanisms that help you do well, right? Whether it be your influencer marketing or your meta ads or all these different things where you can spend money, because most brands, small businesses especially, they don't have the tax incentive because they're not making any money, right? So it's like, okay, so if you take out the tax incentive and, now you're stacking doing good against spending other marketing dollars in other ways. So we're really, from Inspired, we came at it through this lens of, well, what is the power of all these small business, particularly on Shopify, that are started by these, impassioned entrepreneurs, and they'll do anything to grow their business and grow their product, but they're so focused in their whole, but what comes out of that is these amazing consumer experiences where people fall in love with these brands. And so we realized if Yo can make you fall in love with their product, can they make you fall in love with a charity that supports people that need access to food? Right. Mm-hmm. And if Haven Athletic can make you fall in love with their gym bag, can they also make you fall in love with the opportunity of helping somebody who suffered a spinal injury get the recovery that they need, and get back to the gym or just get back to standing up? And so we kind of looked at it and said, like, ultimately this whole, the whole philanthropy sector, the nonprofit sector, and we really almost started this as a nonprofit, by the way. We realized we didn't want to have the same problems that nonprofits had in terms of having to raise money. We were like, if we can be self-sustaining, we won't have that same problem. But we realized that the nonprofit sector, the philanthropy sector, has really looked at businesses as gimme, 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 gimme. And the businesses go, well, I don't really have anything to give. And we said, well, what if we could change that equation and say, instead of you giving money, what if you could give your marketing power? What if you could take the full marketing muscle that you have, your ability to inspire customers, your incredible website, your email, your influencer marketing, all of your social campaigns, and you could weave in the storytelling of a mission-driven nonprofit on the ground doing amazing work? How many brands would say yes to that versus I've got to go figure out how to afford this? And that's really how Inspired came to be where it is today, where we've removed the friction, we've removed the cost, and we focus on generating immediate ROI for any brand on Shopify and in the future, many other places.
That's amazing. And then, I want to nerd out a little bit because, there's a lot of data, I imagine, behind Inspire that you're providing back to the brands, providing back to the nonprofits. I know the difference, and just for the listeners out there, the difference between causation and correlation, but are you able to provide, the data and the intelligence and the insights back to the brands, especially on that cohort that is gravitating towards that nonprofit or that cause that's being promoted by the brand? Like, is that consumer correlating with more money?
It's core to what we do. So what we put in front of brands is the opportunity to partner with incredible charities. We have a curated list, so it's not all charities in the world. We partner with the best charities. We put them through a vetting process. We make sure that, they, can frankly find alignment with enough brands, have great stories to tell, be top rated with GuideStar and Charity Navigator, et cetera. And then, what we do is we say, but brand, the best experience for your consumer and the best data set for you is cause of choice. So what our brand partners do, we'll say, hey, we support Charity Water. We believe in providing clean water to, kids around the world. But if you believe and if you're inspired by something different, whether that be racial justice reform or whether that be, feeding families, you can choose to unlock our donation to that cause. Now, what the brand then gets is instead of guessing or, theorizing on what your customers care about, they actually tell you. So now you know Eric cares about clean water. Steve cares about criminal justice reform. And now when you're trying to re-engage and re-inspire me, you can do that on the basis of what I actually care about and pull on those heartstrings. And again, that's the do good and do well pairing. It's good for the consumer. They're feeling good. They're able to support the things they care about. It's good for you because you know a little bit more about them and can continue to inspire and impassion them about what they believe in.
No, absolutely. And, in terms of that curated list of charities, and I'm actually wearing, We Got This, the first gift registry for cancer patients, thrivers, survivors, supporters. I put them in touch with Ben on your team. Alyssa Calver is going to be a guest on the show in a couple of weeks, just so I fully understand. If they're presented as a potential charity to be part of the Inspired Network, they would, again, go through this rigorous vetting process. And then how does a brand select We Got This as one of those causes or charities to promote?
So it's a great question. So again, coming at it from removing all the friction, any brand on Shopify, we've been building a wait list because we had significant demand going into the last 6 months. So we're just now letting anyone get access to the platform right away after the vetting process. So Shopify has its own vetting process, which is no firearms, no drugs, all that kind of stuff. We have a layer on top of that. But once you get access, you're able to, in 2 minutes, download the app to your store, choose your charity, click activate, and you're live. And if you want to change your charity tomorrow, you drop the list down and you change it. You want to do breast cancer awareness this month and then switch back to feeding families next month. You can do that. So, and we're constantly adding charities. So we should have, by the end of this year, we'll have 30 covering we're basically trying to cover every cause category under the sun with the best of breed partner. And so probably be 30 by the end of this year. So it's plenty of options for both brands and the consumer cause of choice. And then we'll probably expand that to 100 by end of next year. But it's not like our goal is not to bring on 1 million charities. We're trying to really concentrate our efforts to make really sizable impact in terms of building an audience of millions of consumers, nurturing them along that funnel for that charity with storytelling and impact reports, and then ultimately basically future-proofing these charities for this next generation, the next 100 years, where they don't have an audience of Gen Z, certainly not Gen Alpha. And what are they going to be when, all those, old white guys stop writing those checks? What happens next? And so we look at ourselves as a long-term solution, not just about the donations we unlock, but about the consumers we inspire, the traffic that we drive, the actions that we get people to take. Those are all part of our way of creating impact. It's not just about dollars.
Not just about dollars, it's about awareness, about education.
Yeah.
Can you provide some more detail on those steps and those actions or those engagements that you have consumers do to, again, learn more about those causes that brands are promoting and showing on their websites?
Yeah. So the first thing is the natural consumer journey, right? So you go to a website, you mentioned one of our brand partners. Everybody does it differently. We don't have a one size fits all. We give you between 6 and 7 different ways to integrate Inspired into your store. Floating widgets, product page widgets, checkout widgets, right? That all give you different ways to storytell. It's based on one simple thing. It's like, it's the rule of marketing, right? Like you need to see something. Frankly, that's why charities are banging down our door, because they know even if you're the top charity out there, your brand awareness is down 20, 30% over the last 3-4 years, right? There's so many charities. There's so much noise. And so you need to get people to see your brand. You need to get them to see it a bunch of times in order to say, I want to learn more. So what we do is we bake in the brand value prop with the charity value prop. So we give you a bunch of storytelling widgets to tell you different reasons and why you should look at this, different reasons why you may click on this. The most effective widgets are the ones right before checkout, where now you know that you're going to be able to unlock $5 or $10 or $20 to your cause of choice if you click this button. And that's a very powerful moment for the brand. It's a very powerful moment for the consumer, and it's a very powerful moment for the charity. Once you actually choose your cause, that's when there's an opportunity for the brand, which we help do, re-engage you with that thank you,
Mm-hmm.
Here's what you just did. Here's the difference you've made. And collectively, here's the impact this charity is able to do with the funds that they're raising through the Inspire Network. And so we give you that dopamine hit, and then we give you that confirmation of this is a bigger thing that you're a part of. There's a collective impact that's happening here that's extremely powerful. But the dopamine hit alone and the ability for the charity to hit you with inspiring non-solicitation communications is really the big thing for us. We're not asking anyone to donate. We're not asking customers to go. Just to be clear, there's a lot of platforms that are out there with add-on or roundup. We don't do any of that. This is all sponsored impact. Our whole job is to get you really excited, not going like this and putting blinders on, but really excited and engaged. And what happens there is it's a gateway drug. So once you get that feeling of, oh, I just got to do good for free, you're not worried about that solicitation. Your eyes are open, your ears are open. We call it the virtuous cycle, where we continue to take you down that road and we make you an extremely valuable prospective donor for those charities. And obviously an inspired customer for those brands.
And an inspired customer for those brands. But as you're taking that consumer down that path and showing, again, having them engage with all of these different widgets and then the confirmation, and just so I fully understand, the listeners fully understand, that gives the charity the ability to start talking to that consumer directly.
So in our model, we handle the ongoing communications on behalf of the charity. So we're not giving your data to the charity. We don't do any of that. Again, there's a lot of old way stuff, and we do everything completely differently because frankly, charities aren't very good. So we just get at doing it. I mean, no fault to them. They're under-resourced. Like, again, going back to the nonprofit challenge, they don't have the marketing dollars. They don't have the personnel. They don't have the tech chops. And so what we say to our charity partners is, let us continue to engage and inspire that consumer. Mm-hmm. They'll always have opportunities at any one of those intersections of communication and retargeting to come to your website, to sign up to your newsletter, or to donate. But if we hand over this data to you, which, by the way, of course, they think they want, and, in the future, that may be something that we offer. But today, it's about let us nurture those consumers along and produce really excited new donors and activists for your charity, because we're really good at it. And so the value proposition for charities is awareness, engagement, funnel management, with the goal of you may not get them day one, but 3 months later, we're directing them to where you need them to go. It's just not, hey, you just unlocked a donation buying this really cool hat on Shopify. Right. Now you're going to get spammed by charities, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's what you don't want. It happens.
And the metrics we're seeing in terms of traffic and net new donations with our charity partners, overwhelming, right? So the thing is, if you just are a little patient in letting that donor really get to know you and your mission, all of a sudden they're volunteering to join up, sign up for your newsletter, or join your monthly $5 a month donation program. And you didn't have to spam them with your email that, frankly, is not going to get the engagement that our emails get and our open rates and our click-through rates, because we have already built a course cross-brand. When you experience Inspired at a bunch of different stores and you have this cohesive, consistent experience, we're now a trusted partner in your life of that everyday giving, everyday dopamine hit. So then when we say, hey, here's other ways to get involved with these charities that you've supported, they're way more open to it. So that's the difference.
That's huge, because more or less prompted my next question, which is you're creating this marketplace for charities. So if you engage with Charity Water and you're, again, handling the communication with that consumer about Charity Water, and then you have the data intelligence that Charity Water supporter also likes X, Y, and Z causes. So that re-engagement is, hey, I know that you supported Charity Water, right?
Yeah. Good.
Keep doing that. But have you met these causes and charities, which I think you also will like to support?
Well, it's interesting. Here's how the data breaks down. Of all the consumers across the network that are shopping with inspired brands, 60 or 75% of them are saying some version of, that was awesome. show me other brands that support that cause, right?
Interesting.
So that's interesting. All right.
Yes.
And they say it in different ways. They're like, I want to shop more with this brand to support this cause. I want to continue shopping for impact. I want to be introduced to new brands. But it's a large percentage of people. And then there's probably another, probably 33% that are saying, I want to learn more about this cause. And so it's interesting, right? Some just want that passive. I just want to keep giving that felt good. Tell me more places I can do that. Others want to learn more about the cause, but the results are kind of mutually beneficial, right? Because if you want to know more about brands that support that cause, really good for the cause. You want to know about other causes, really good for the other causes. It's a flywheel effect, right? The more that you do, the more that you learn, the more inspired you are, the more like it starts to get really, really sticky.
Yes.
And that is where the real value lies in terms of, what you could call loyalty for brands and charities that you care about that are helping you have this experience. We've thought about, different ways in which we can continue to add value to both the brands and charities on our network by not just rewarding them with this free giving, but what other types of ways can we reward them for this behavior? Because this behavior is really valuable. And so we've been playing around with some ideas that, they're really exciting because people are excited. It's one of those things where when you check out and you just spend money, there's a lot of negative feelings associated with that. There's buyer's remorse. There's like this post-purchase dissonance feeling. When you spend money and then you're surprised with this, thank you so much, Eric. You just unlocked the donation and you see these kids drinking from this well that you just supported. You're feeling really good. So you're taking something that's sort of a negative thing, a negative feeling, and you're turning it into a really positive one. So at that moment of inspiration, there's a lot you can do to move this generic customer into, I wouldn't say immediately into an activist, but into somebody that's curious and in the right state of mind to be inspired to take another action.
Oh, absolutely. I think about it. Yes. Like in similar fashion, you have someone like you and I, who's again, more in tune. We're in the space. We know about causes. We talk about them, so again, if someone presents us with a cause based on a topic or area that we're interested in, or we're curious to learn more about, yes, we'll dive in. And then there are people who are like, yeah, again, I'm not going to do the work, but if you present it to me on a silver platter, yes, I'll take action.
One thing we realized early on is that there are a lot of people that have the best of intentions and they'll tell you they want to give and they'll tell you they're going to give and they don't give. And so we've removed all that friction. You don't have to think about giving and you don't have to think about changing where you shop or what app you use. It just happens. It's just there. Right. And so if it's just there and you go and buy the thing you were going to buy anyways, which, well, in our case, we're seeing that you buy it a lot more when you see that you get to make an impact. So conversion rates are going up and average order value is going up and return frequency rate is going up and net promoter score is going up. But the reality is, even if that wasn't the case, the same would hold true that it's really because there's no friction. And that's the difference between a small percentage of people who say they want to do good, actually doing good, and everybody doing good. And there's very few people that don't take the opportunity when they understand it and when they see it, that don't take the opportunity to unlock that donation through the brand. And typically they're on the run on mobile and they're just doing an impulse purchase, right? So you'll see the higher price point on our network. Like as you go up to $100, $200, $300, $500, $1,000, $10,000, the further you go up on price point, the more engaged the audience is with unlocking donations to their charity of choice. They're paying attention. They're making a significant size purchase. They want to see that it went through. They want to understand the action. So they're really, really present for this impact opportunity.
Yeah, I want 100%. Because again, if they're spending the time and the money, and they're seeing again that impact.
Yeah, and it's also bigger numbers. If you're right, if it's 1% of your purchase price and you're spending $1,000, that's a big number. That's like you're going to stop and go, I should give this to somebody, right? Whereas if you're buying something now on our platform, it's 1% or a minimum of $1, so it's always meaningful. But obviously, $1 versus $100 is a different story emotionally.
Oh, I'm emotionally, yeah, absolutely. And just going back to your previous comment about the purchase experience, sometimes we do things, and you feel, again, you have buyer's remorse or you feel inconvenienced, and
Yeah.
it's funny. Like, I was just reading and I was talking to a buddy of mine about the new CEO at Starbucks, Brian Nichols. His big challenge right now is you have a schism. You have the people who want to go to Starbucks just on the mobile app, and
Yeah.
then you have consumers who want to spend time at the cafe and really look at Starbucks as that third place.
Yeah.
So again, if you were in that driver's seat, or again, if you had Brian Nichols' ear, how would you again try to help him reframe the experience, going to a Starbucks, understanding that he has two distinct challenges, while at the same time, you have two different audiences that are sizable and are patronizing his business, and perhaps when it comes to catering to those two distinct audiences, how does he think through about how do I make both shopping experiences more pleasurable by the fact that we're going to unlock and enable those consumers to give as seamlessly and frictionlessly by, again, using the Inspire platform?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, we think about this a lot. Number one, we come from that space. So prior to our e-commerce days where we really hit, the right notes and we figured out, distribution, and, Shopify has been a big help for that because it's, 2 seconds to download the app and you're live on your store and there's millions of stores. And so that flywheel of word of mouth and all that is just incredible. But we have bigger ambitions than that, right? Like, we started out in the payments space, really looking at how do we create impact with every purchase. And so we did stuff at Starbucks. We did stuff, we've done a lot of this stuff. And so,
okay.
What I would say to you is that, there is nothing more powerful than swiping your card and or tapping your phone and getting instant push message on your phone that says your project has been 100% funded. The kids are getting the instruments and art supplies in your local school. We've done all of that. And so that's extremely powerful. I don't know how to look at the two audiences, because it's funny you say that, because we cater to two customers. We've got charities, we've got brands. So we always have to look at things through the lens of how do we make this a win-win and then consumers in the middle. So how do we make this a win for charities, a win for consumers, and a win for brands? You have to serve all three of those masters. So it's similar, different, but it's similar to your question of, like, you have the people at Starbucks that want to experience the Starbucks cafe of old, and then there's the new on the go that they just did at my local Starbucks here up the street. And I have to say, it was extremely uninspiring. Like, when all of a sudden I went in and there was no longer a cafe and it was just a stacked bunch of orders ready for people to pick up. And they basically, I don't even know what they did. They blocked off somehow the rest of the restaurant. Extremely uninspiring. So that's not the move. At least for us, it's not really hard to look through the lens of finding win-wins, right? So for example, like storytelling widgets, right? So when we propose to brands that we have a bunch of new stuff coming out, like what you'll see is going to blow your mind, because we crack the code. When we partner with charities, the difference with most traditional social impact commerce is, like, you're just showing a logo of a charity. We support logo. It's like, right?
Yes.
With Inspired, we work with the charities on storytelling. And so when you go to our brand partner sites in the very near future, hint, hint, you'll see real storytelling where you'll see, here's what this charity is like in an interactive, fun way. Now, what does that mean for the brand? So it's really good for the charity, because now they have a storytelling, little mini story on all these websites, which if you're spending money on YouTube and Facebook, which is all these charities are doing, and they're losing money because it's very hard to acquire donors, we're giving you something significantly better than that in a total blue ocean with no other noise. And the thing is, we did that at first for the charities. We're like, we want to give you more visibility and storytelling on these sites. And then what we realized is, how do we make it a win for the brands? Well, if you think about a brand site, out of, every 1,000 customers that come to your store to check it out, 1.5% of those are actually making a purchase. So you come to the store and you're able to present this incredible purpose-driven story to these customers. And we don't have the numbers yet, right? Because this is a new initiative, but our suspicion is that our data, because we do obviously a ton of data tracking on everything from impressions to track, but our suspicion is a lot of those people that come and don't shop are going to come back faster if they engage with these stories of what you're doing to build wells with charity water or what you're doing to feed, families with farm lake. And so finding that balance between what you need to do to serve one customer subset and what you need to do to serve another, that's what we do all day long. I think Starbucks has the same challenge, right? The difference with, which probably makes it a little easier for them, is ultimately the whole thing is all about getting coffee and croissants. And
right.
It's just how they want to pick them up and how the experience that they want to have. But it's really one customer with two different buying journeys. And for us, I would say the comparison to us would be, mobile's harder than desktop. And the reason mobile's harder than desktop is not because it's more how people, the limited time and distractions that they have. So you may be buying something. I'm talking to you and I'm on my phone going, let me just get this done really quick,
Right.
and that doesn't really allow for the storytelling engaging. So, a lot of people will do, research on mobile and then they'll come back to desktop, which is where we see a lot of those, consumers experiencing impact. But we need to get better at figuring out ways to make that mobile Starbucks shopper across our network just as inspired as that desktop shopper, which is the cafe customer.
The cafe, right? Yes, to feel that they're able to do what they can do on a desktop on a mobile device. Still have that impact, still have that seamless.
The biggest thing that happens, though, I will tell you, and this was a little bit by accident, is we realized that the best thank you could give to a customer that unlocked a donation and chose a cause and told you what they cared about is to thank them. And so we started with this concept of let's just send thank you emails on behalf of the brand and the charity, right? So we pair the charity logo and the brand logo, and you get a nice thank you, Eric. Thank you so much. And then we realized, well, what if we did that same thing for people that didn't unlock their donation? So they had $5 sitting there to give to any cause they cared about, and they didn't do it because they were on the go grabbing their Starbucks. So we said, well, let's send them an email and say the next day, and it's with a little gift in the subject line that says, you've got $5 to donate to any cause you care about. That went through the roof. So then we got all the mobile shoppers redeeming their donation and being part of that impact journey, because they get that email and say, oh yeah, I did just shop at that store. I didn't know I unlocked $5 or $10, whatever it is. And those redemptions, which take you right back to the store to redeem, went through the roof. It's arguably one of the most successful things we've done in terms of engagement.
I can imagine it's an abandoned cart for giving.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not just like a generic abandoned cart. This is like a personalized, like we know you did X, Eric.
Yep.
Here's that $5 where you can donate to any charity or cause, which is absolutely tremendous.
Yeah.
Stephen, you mentioned innovation and storytelling. What are some other things that you can reveal to us about Inspired and what you anticipate releasing over the next 6 months to a year?
Well, we've got some secrets, and we're definitely one of those companies that we keep our secrets pretty close because we've been working at them for a very long time. But I can share some stuff. Let me think about some of the things I would share. So, I think one thing I would tell you is that they're again going back to ways in which you can drive more loyalty and repeat customers and referrals. We've got some things there that I alluded to before in terms of, well, you did good for free. We removed the friction. You didn't have to give any money, but you did take an action. And we have ways that we are planning to reward that action with our brand partners and really make the brand the hero. Secondly, I would tell you that, we've learned that, the context around cause is really, really powerful. So the idea that you can, discover brands, in a friction-free way that care about the things you care about. Turns out we're really good at that, and and brands love that, and obviously it's great for charities. And then I said, going back to Starbucks and and the rest of the world of where people spend their money, what we do for brands on Shopify can be applied anywhere. And so we're really looking at, after every brand on Shopify is on Inspired, and that is in the works. We do have a program that is free indefinitely for every brand on Shopify. So, eventually, we see this sort of just packaged in with your Shopify experience. There's nothing you need to spend. There's nothing you need to do. Just hit this button and you're done. And so that's a big, play for us, for next year. And I think once we've really kind of nailed, e-commerce, I think it's like, all right, well, now you have all these people that are shopping online with all these great brands. And by the way, we do our work offline too. So if you go and make a transaction with a brand that has stores and they're on Shopify, you get that same, hey, you've got $5 to donate. So again, that same concept for in-store.
Sure.
So then we realized what comes next? And you could look at a Starbucks, you could look at a Airbnb, right? What is the biggest thing that keeps Airbnb hosts from giving back? They're in the same challenge as D2C brand founders. They're trying to make a living,
Yes.
right? So how can we make it more accessible for Airbnb hosts to help create this impact with their guest? And then our vision is, how do we do it on a localized level where now that guest is giving back to that community, which is in the Airbnb ethos, right? It's like, how to support local hosts and the local community and really personalize it to that space in the world. And then, further from that, I'd add that what an incredible way to talk about your Airbnb story of this trip that you did and said, wow, I had the most amazing experience at Susie's house in Lake Tahoe. And not only that, but without spending any additional money, what I paid for my stay, I got to support a local kids community to get access to sports. And what an amazing review that is for the host and for Airbnb. And so we're really looking at this concept of every transaction should be inspired. And you really should have this injected into your veins every day as many times as possible. When you're buying your coffee, when you're booking your Airbnb, or when you're buying from your new favorite Shopify brand.
The name Inspired is intentional.
Yeah.
And because it really is, because again, you are thinking omni life, omni channel, we're the same person online as we are offline. When you were first talking about online to offline, I'm like, okay, can Inspire be the Rakuten of giving? Because, you could get a bounce back or get a promotion. If I buy something on Bloomingdale's.com, I can still load my credit card. So when I swipe it at Bloomingdale's by my house, I still got that same benefit through the Rakuten network. But then you're talking about Airbnb. I'm like, okay, Turo, Peerspace, any place where you're transacting with a local person in particular, that local host, that person who's giving you their car for that week trip, that person who's allowing you to record a podcast at their house. Again, anywhere where these transactions are happening. Yes. It's more that local micro impact.
And the thing about what's always failed with other companies that have tried to do the Rakuten for good or whatever is they're always asking the consumer to make a choice. Do good for the world or do good for yourself. So take this cash back and put it in your bank account or donate it. And we've always believed at Inspired, that's a false choice. You should be able to do good and do well. So the Rakuten version of Inspired is less about, being like them, but for good. Instead, it's, how do you layer on more rewards on top of the good that you're doing? And not have to make that choice between discounts or donations. That's a big, again, there's a few little secrets in there, what we have coming, but that's a really exciting part because I feel, and we all feel that the process of, no pun intended, inspiring somebody, you want to tap into all those emotions that are going to make them feel good and want to do more good. And if they feel good and want to do more good, and there's a reward mechanism that you could build into that, you're going to create a lot of change. And so you're not going to create a lot of change by saying, instead of you taking this $25 that you've unlocked, instead of using it to pay for groceries for your children, give it to somebody else. That'd be wonderful if everyone could do that. It's hard, right? So, and they know when they do it, they feel good, but they don't feel good if their baby's crying because they don't have baby formula, right? So that's where we're if they can create a way to, influence the success and longevity and sustainability of a charity doing amazing work, but they can't afford the money. What else can they contribute? And that's what we're focused on. How can 8 billion humans contribute to the world when it doesn't always come down to money? And that goes all the way down to how do millions of small business contribute to the world when it doesn't come down to just money? And what that does, it takes charity, or social impact commerce or corporate philanthropy. It takes it from a 1% thing to a 99% thing. And this goes all the way up the food chain. If you really think about it, even big brands, they're giving a small amount of money. Look at the marketing power that Liquid Death has, right? Now, maybe you can get Liquid Death to donate $500,000 if you're really good at selling them as a charity. Maybe $500,000 if they can take a tax deduction, but they're not profitable yet, so they really can't. So it's just another marketing spend. So maybe even not, maybe $250K. Or what if Liquid Death said, I will put my brand, my marketing muscle, the most creative team in the world, all of my diehard consumers that are tattooing my logo on their arms and legs, and I will pair that with your charity to drive awareness and engagement so that over the long term, my customers become your donors. Which one are you going to take as a charity? The 250K or the full horsepower? Right?
That horsepower. Absolutely.
So that's why we think this is so disruptive. It's so incredibly disruptive to the space. And no one's ever thought about that way. It's like the way it's always been done. The way it's always been done is you ask companies to write you checks. Most of them say no. Some of them squeeze out a little bit. Some of them do it this year, not next year. Some of them will do it, but they put the up to 50,000 with the asterisk of this, all the asterisks of net of cost of goods sold and net of marketing costs. And it's like, so we just flipped the script and said, there's a better way. And we're now 100% sure we've proven it. And now we're scaling it.
Excellent. And this is a great place to stop. I think this is an incredible conversation that hopefully will inspire. I feel inspired the listeners, to take action, to go to inspired.com, to go to Shopify sites that are working with Inspired, to find out about all these and discover, not just find out, but to discover, new causes that they didn't know existed.
Yeah.
And help.
We got to get you. I'll make sure I'll get you on the list. I'll get you the hats and we got the hoodies. We'll get you all the gear. Now you're inspired. You got to represent.
Yes. I got to represent. Yeah. Again, as I said earlier in the week on LinkedIn and Instagram, I love wearing guest brand merch any way. And I say this with, from my tippy toes up to my mouth, anytime, any opportunity I can to link you, Stephen, with Mike at Long Wharf Supply or whomever that is also doing good while doing well, I definitely want to make that happen. As I mentioned, I'm collecting and you're collecting a lot of dots. How do we make, how do we work as a community to drive as much change and positivity as possible? So I really do appreciate, let's do it. And I appreciate
Thank you for having me, buddy.
Of course. Thank you. And if people want to learn more about Inspired, learn more about you, Stephen, where can they find you?
First place, inspired.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. I think it's just /Stephen Reddy. You can find me on Twitter at Reddy Brother. I'm a twin brother and I have 3 boys. So,
awesome.
At Reddy Brother. But yeah, probably inspired.com is the best place to go. We're also at Inspired on Twitter and at Inspired on Instagram.
Excellent. So I'll include all those links in this show write-up. Stephen, thank you very much for the time, the wisdom, the insights, the motivation, the inspiration for us to all do better and good in this world. So thank you so much.
Appreciate it, Eric. Have a good day. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for joining this episode of the Worthy for 30 podcast. Stay tuned for more insights from impactful business leaders. Don't miss out. Follow us on all podcast platforms to catch every conversation.